Good afternoon. Welcome to the Labor and Industry session. We're glad you're here to hear our program. Now, some of the charges of the Labor and Industry Committee is to continue to work to improve the economic status of our community members, not only in salaries, but good benefits and fair treatment. We have an illustrious panel for you today, and I'd like to introduce my co-chair, Sanchioni Butler, who will in turn introduce our panel members. Thank you for your support, and remember, we continue to fight forward.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Again, as Ms. Lee said, we want to thank our panelists for agreeing to have this discussion. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our guest. First, we have Ms. Brenda Scott, who is the president of MASE CWA. We also have Ms. Geraldine Bender, who is the state president of the American Federation of Teachers. And last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Mr. Charles Clark. He is the National AFL-CIO Community Engagement Coordinator of the Southern Region. So again, we want to thank them for joining us, and as we should just go ahead and dive into the conversation. And I just kind of want to throw a few things out there to our panelists. When I'm thinking about the conference theme, Fighting Forward, I've been asking myself, what does that mean pertaining to the labor movement, as well as the civil rights movement, as we move this discussion throughout around how do we continue the work? How do we continue our work during these trying times? So just thinking of that, and my first question would be, from your perspective, what needs to happen to create systemic lasting change in our state? Who'd like to tackle that first? Ms. Scott?
Yes. There needs to be, in order to create a systemic lasting change in Mississippi, there really needs to be the coming together of common people for the common good. And labor can definitely play an important role in that. When I said we need to educate, organize, and mobilize around the subject of politics and the role that it will play in moving forward. So politics in the United States, particularly in the Mississippi, centers on the question of power. Who's in control? What policies do they pursue? And on behalf of which constituency? For many years, those who have been prosperous became more so. And those that prosperity have eluded have lost grounds. A situation that could be described as intensifying prosperity, inequality, and it could be pain for the poor, and that is to include the working poor. When we look at the recent tax cuts and what has happened in the previous administration, we are reminded of the impact that it has caused on the social and economic problems that confront, especially public workers, which we deal with on a daily basis, and the services that they provide. It zaps the energy, and it also destroys the morale. So I think that our first order of business would be to empower workers and people in the community alliances to come together and do the very important work of organizing going forward.
Beautiful, well said. Would you like to add to the conversation, Ms. Bender?
Oh, yes, I would. For systemic change here in Mississippi, Mississippi has to care about the Mississippians that live here. It has to start there, because all of the things that go on in the big house, they're not considering the little people only the big people or their buddies and friends. So whatever changes, whatever building back better, whatever comes down the pipe, if Mississippi doesn't start caring about the people that live here, then it will never change. When I think in terms of COVID, and the attitude is if you don't want to wear a mask and die, that's on you. It's the same thing if you don't want to go to work. We're not going to give you Medicaid. Well, I can't go to work because there's nowhere to go to work.
That's right.
But you're still denying me Medicaid. So we have to train Mississippi to care about the people that live here.
Point taken. Mr. Clark, would you like to add to the discussion?
Yes, my two sisters have given some beautiful answers. When you talk about systemic lasting change, you're talking about a radical structural change that needs to occur in Mississippi, which is transformational. And whenever you talk about transforming something, that's difficult and is also time consuming. And so, one of the things that I think is important is that we've got to have concerted, consistent, cohesive activism. And I'm talking about activism that's sustainable, not just where you mobilize around one issue or come together during the political cycle to elect the politician that you want elected, but I'm talking about a sustained activism that's going to actually get out in the streets. And recently, I've been reading a book called Reimagine Activism, where it's challenging us to look at activism from a different perspective. And so I think it's important that we have this sort of cohesive activism that has to transcend organization, which I think gets to the point that Dr. Bender says, and that is, and Sister Scott, and that is coalescing with organizations all across the state who are like-minded to work on a plan and a program that's going to create this kind of change and to create it constantly. And another thing I want to make mention of that I think is important in creating this lasting systemic change, and that is creating a culture for organizing. It's been proven that where you have unions, workers are more able to lift themselves out of poverty because of the negotiated wages and benefits. And so we've seen where in the last 20 to 30 years, union density has declined. And with the decline of union density, you've seen wages decline. And so we've got to create an environment, a climate for massive organizing in Mississippi, so that we can also begin to change it systemically.
So I just want to say that you all make very good, valid points about basically it means people having access to just the necessities, and healthcare is a necessity. And I agree that we do need to take it over to the state capitol, and it has to be changes, legislative changes across this state to see real change. So, very good start to this discussion. Want to kind of move to the next topic and ask you all, what are some of the challenges for workers and communities in Mississippi and or just workers in our country?
Well, I work with the public sector, and that's correction workers, social workers, healthcare workers, and other public sector workers who deals with the human misery that accompany the social problems caused by political economics. And we see that because in the state of Mississippi, there has been a continuous cut to government, from public education to public safety, you name it. They do not, the people that are in control of this state is a party that really believe in cutting government and fostering in privatization where people can channel money into their campaign. We basically have the best government money can buy. But some of the results of this has been low wages, lack of training, high caseloads because people are leaving. It's been a nightmare because our people are considered essential workers. So when COVID hit, it wasn't a matter of them being able to stay home and do the work that needed to be done, but yet they went into a work environment that was not CDC appropriate. So I think there needs to be an appreciation for public workers, but I think also the public need to understand who these workers are. We're the ones that allow you to be able to sleep and not be dealing with the criminal element because we work at the correction facility, we work in the mental health facility, we work in the employment area. It's so many areas of work that public employees do that I think the John Q. public just takes for granted. They think this stuff just happens, even to having your food inspected when you go out to eat. This is work that our public workers do on a daily basis, and they're not rewarded in any form or fashion. As a matter of fact, they always operate on a take back.
Thank you, Brenda. You know, a lot of our people who are watching this, they really don't understand those state workers. They're frontline workers. And so just the fact that you've been able to just kind of peel that onion back to give folks who are watching this a little bit more intake on what's at stake, you know, what they face, the dangers that they face. And they put their lives on the line to make a living for us. So I can appreciate your comments. Ms. Bender, did you want to add to that?
I certainly do. When we think about the workforce and the challenges that are facing them, I go back some years and think about the companies that were once here, Frito-Lay.
Mm-hmm.
They had a job, they had benefits, they had a good paying job. Their kids could grow up and go to work as they left. All kids had somewhere to go to work. In Mississippi right now, when I listen to a guy in corporate America laugh about being in Mississippi, able to open up and start a company with only 37 and a half hours. That means, man, I don't have to pay benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to offer this. So again, I take it back to the legislature. Yeah. We are allowing the companies to come in and we say, well, we're giving Mississippi jobs. Well, take Nissan. Mm-hmm. People driving off the road because they're part-time workers, but they're made to stay over. Mm-hmm. When we provide work, people will go to work. Meaningful work. They're not going to get out and dig a ditch. You have a backhoe for that. But they will go to work for a fair wage. I remember being on the steps of the Capitol and talking about $15 an hour. And this was about 4 or 5 years ago. And a young man asked me, was that on a computer somewhere? Was that real? And I told him, yes, he could look it up. He thought he was making top dollar at $10.50.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are with our workforce. If you don't have jobs, there goes your community. What can the community provide for itself if there are no funds, no tax base? Right. So it goes back to the big house. Mm-hmm. What are we going to do to get the big house, to clean house, right, and do a better job?
And if we don't have these good, decent paying jobs, it hinders Mississippians from lifting themselves out of poverty.
Right.
You know, and the one thing that I can say that I see a slow emergence, and you all can correct me if you don't see it. But now that people have started to go back to work, and I see a lot of businesses putting signs out and saying, we'll start you off with $15 an hour. We're offering benefits. We're offering sign-in bonuses. So to me, this is what you're just saying. 4 years ago, we were at the Capitol protesting saying, give these people $15 an hour. But it had to take a catastrophic event to happen for these business owners to wake up and realize that they've got to share the wealth with their workers. So we still have a long way to go, but I still see a light, a little crack in the door that something is happening and something is changing.
Let me just add this, and Brenda, I know you want to jump in here too.
Yeah.
What has happened? The unemployment allowed people to buy things they were never able to buy on the job.
Yeah.
And they are now saying, if this is what I'm supposed to be earning,
yes,
then you either pay me or I'm going to stay off. Because they've had a taste of honey.
Right.
And they don't want to go back to the peanuts.
You're absolutely right.
I would just like to add, for people who may watch this that may not be from the state of Mississippi, just to get an idea of the kinds of the things that public workers go through. You look at the Mississippi Department of Correction, it has a majority female workforce. And by the way, they are minority workers as well. And they have, they may go to work 12 hours. And at the end of that shift, if a replacement doesn't show for them, then they are mandated to not abandon their post because of the public safety issue. But at the same time, they accumulate so many hours of agency comp time, holiday pay, and all of that. And though they are not getting paid that particular money, when they leave state government, they lose a lot of time that they have actually worked on the job. And personally, myself, having been a state employee in the state of Mississippi, I worked for the WIC program. Well, I divorced. I was a single parent, but I had to survive. I had 3 kids. So what did I do? I moonlighted working for the state of Mississippi and moonlighted at Domino Pizza. And after doing that for 4 years straight, I had a coworker who was murdered for 2 pizzas and $4. That's the situation that we are going through. But I had to learn that when lawmakers run for office, whether it be the House or the Senate, they kissing your baby and they're asking for your vote. Then they're saying, let me go to work for you. But we feel inferior to these type people, like they got a title, I can't approach them, but they work for you. You have to tell them what to do. And at the end of the first 4 years, if they had not supported and made your life better, then what make them earn a second term? It's just that so much that the people need to understand. When I say politics, we all got to understand the role of politics. And right now, we have the best government money can buy.
Agreed. Mr. Clark, did you want to add to the conversation?
Sure. Two things. One is I'd like to just piggyback on what Brenda has just said, and that is that political accountability is missing in this democracy. We will work hard to get folks elected, but don't hold them accountable. And so I think just to kind of go along with her point, accountability is really important. And also when you think about some of the challenges that's facing the workers in Mississippi, particularly as I frame it around this systemic change that we just talked about, then some of the challenges that I see is fear. I see workers who are fearful of losing jobs, fearful of losing power, not having the resources and the know-how to fight back, having the lack of intestinal fortitude. And so fear, I think, is a big impediment to the kind of systemic change that we need. And then I think a lot of the fear is perpetuated by listening to the message of the right. Sort of like what Sister Bender is saying about the big house, listening to the wrong message from the wrong folks. And so we know that the right is very good at homing in on their message, and it's usually catered to the rich and to corporate America, on the backs of workers and on the backs of the average, common, everyday person. And so I think it's really important that we be able to look past this this kind of rhetoric that we hear. Another challenge is the lack of resources dedicated to our communities. People of color, Black folks, we've got to make sure that there's sufficient resources coming into our community. And then lastly, I want to make mention is the challenge of racism and discrimination. If we're talking about creating systemic change, then we got to address continually this racism and discrimination that consistently raise its ugly head every day. Been doing it every day, every year of my life and your life as well. But we're in a place where people are beginning to see it, and so we got to drive this thing home to try to drive it out.
All right, I'm gonna move on. Ms. Bender, you had kind of mentioned this when we kind of first in that first round of questioning, but I just want to say, pose as Congress works to pass the Build Back Better plan. How do you see Mississippian benefiting from this Jobs Act?
There is a lot of money to be had here in Mississippi. It is intended to help build the schools, the roads, which will give people jobs, which will give work. We just have to make sure that the money comes. And just like we're waiting for the excess of the 85 million to go into education, we have to make sure this is up to us, the people, the community, to keep asking questions, to write our legislatures. Is the money here? When are we going to see the fruits of what the Biden administration has sent to Mississippi? We have to stay on it. We have to let them know we're expecting to have better roads. We're expecting to stop the leak in the building, make sure we have air conditioning and ventilation in our schools, tear down the crumbling buildings and build new ones. We're expecting to see these changes, but we have to stay on the legislatures and make sure that the money comes and the money is used wisely.
That's right. Ms. Scott?
Well, I think it's amazing to have a president who used his platform to promote organized labor. I think that right now, community groups and alliances, along with the union, we got to gain the knowledge and know what skills are needed in order to take advantage of the jobs that are coming. And we have to start organizing today and prepare for that. And we got to be willing to have our members and people in the community participate in that effort. So it's a big thing. If we know there's a Jobs Act out there and jobs are coming, and make sure that as many of these jobs, workers are organized, because workers need a seat at the table, because they're the ones that are fighting to share in the American dream. So I think we have to start organizing like right now, come up with a strategy to win and take advantage of the jobs that are going to be created as a result of the Biden administration.
And a lot of the jobs are trades jobs. You won't necessarily have to go get a 4-year degree or beyond. What he's trying to do is bring back jobs that, like when the factories, the auto factories, you didn't have to have a college education to work at those jobs. And I definitely agree. We do have to start educating the community, tell them what's in the Jobs Act, And
Mm-hmm.
what Build Back Better really means, we do need to go on the offense here. This is the moment
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
start educating folks in the community so that they can buy in. And then we hold our legislators accountable when, like Dr. Bender said, we know the Biden administration sent money here. Where
Mm-hmm.
is it? What's being done with it? We want to see some happening. So I agree with what all you have to say. Mr. Clark, did you want to add to the conversation as well?
Yes, certainly. Mississippi certainly will get monies from the Build Back Better plan. The question becomes how much money will Mississippi get? There has to be some level of interest and activism to make sure that after the vote has passed, that folks are in there trying to maximize the amount of money that Mississippi will receive. And then secondly, as many of you all know, uh, once the money get to Mississippi, we have to make sure that the money is going to where it is supposed to go, to the infrastructure, to job training, to creating jobs, so that folks can actually benefit, as opposed to using that money for other reasons other than what it was intended to. And so the monies would be there, but we got to certainly make sure that we maximize how much we get, and then maximize how what we do with that money once it comes into the state.
Hi, my name is Alitra Perryman, and I serve as the Mississippi lead organizer for the Restaurant Opportunity Center United Mississippi.
I'm TJ Mayfield, Mississippi organizer for Rock United.
I am Dr. Lauren Long, the National Policy Coordinator for Rock United, based here in Jackson, Mississippi.
The Restaurant Opportunity Center United is a nonprofit organization that works on behalf of overworked and underpaid restaurant workers in the state of Mississippi. We work to improve restaurant workers' lives by building worker power and uniting workers from various backgrounds around shared goals and values.
As an organization, we are working to make sure that you not only have an equitable wage, but also fair treatment in the workplace. Did you know that the tip sub wage for restaurant workers in the state of Mississippi is still a mere $2.13? At Rock United, we work to make sure that workers come first.
Rock United has worked to ensure that our diverse workforce has representation in our advocacy and policy pieces. Recently, we supported Equal Pay Day at the Mississippi Capitol, and we are currently working on legislative pieces to raise the tipped sub wage. We have spoken with various state legislators who plan to support our policy work in the near future.
We also offer classes through our CHIO program, the Colors Hospitality Opportunities for Workers Institute, which provides an in-depth and advanced professional training in both front and back of the house restaurant skills at no cost to either employers or employees.
Child offers classes such as management and entrepreneurship in a 2-week virtual program, which concludes with a certificate from Rock United. We also support racial and gender equity and paid leave for all.
For more information on Rock United, please be sure to visit our Facebook page at Rock Mississippi or email any of us at the following below. We look forward to speaking with you soon.
So I'm gonna move on to the final question, and that is, how do you see your organization and or vision of your work move forward over the next few years?
Ms. Bender, you
One
gonna
of
go
the
first?
things I see American Federation of Teachers doing is making sure that our teachers are well prepared for the modern student. that's providing any kind of workshops or training we need for our teachers to be ready for the modern student, the student that comes in knowing more than the student did 10 years ago. You're going to have to be ready to meet the challenge of teaching. And that's our job as a union of teachers, making sure that all of our workforce is ready. We even have workshops for the paraprofessionals to help them be ready for whatever job they have, from security to clerical to bus drivers. So our job would be to make sure that the workforce is prepared to take on the challenge.
Brenda.
Okay, and I totally agree with you, Ms. Bender. And two, the Mississippi Alliance of State Employees have increased our commitment to organizing the unorganized, both in the workplace and in our community. And we're going to join in to try to get a better contract, because we do have collective bargaining with the city of Jackson. And in a situation like with our state employees where there is no contract, then we got to increase our political power and make sure that progressive legislation is passed that will better our pay, our benefits, and our rights on the job. We got to teach people that they are somebody, that they are deserving of the work that they do on a daily basis. You cannot get around the fact that, you know, you got to have the revenue, and we got to have our research department and every research department available to organize labor and community groups to follow the money. So we do not end up with a situation like what happened at the Department of Human Services with the TANF money, what is happening in correction, and what is happening with these volunteer fire departments and things of that nature. We got to have honest people. We got to have transparency, and we have to ensure that that occurs.
I agree. I agree with both of you all. Mr. Clark, did you want to add in on this topic?
When I think about my work and the work of the organization that I work for, the National AFL-CIO, over the next few years in Mississippi, I see creating a space and a place for intensive organizing. And I see that happening by passing massive legislation that would create a level playing field for workers to join unions without intimidation. And when you look at the survey of approval rating of workers, almost 70% approve of unions. 73% said that they believe that workers should have a collective bargaining environment. And so the favorability of unions is such that the climate is there for us to do massive organizing. And I think that that certainly could happen with the passage of the PRO Act, which is a massive revolutionary piece of legislation that currently in the Senate now, and the hope is that we can get it passed, which would really help to create this level playing field. So I see doing a lot of organizing in Mississippi and creating the kinds of coalition and leverage that we need so that workers understand that they have power and that the community is also helping to create the power and to neutralize the employer.
So I want to say to you all, if you have any as we close out, is there anything that I possibly didn't ask that you want to put on the table before we end the discussion in regards to this topic? How do we move our work forward?
Well, I would just like to end with the fact that President Obama said we are the change makers that we pray for, hope for, wish for. So everybody have to accept some level of responsibility in making sure that we move forward together.
You're right. Ms. Bender?
And I agree with you. We are all in this together. It's not about a village. It's about all of us. Because, see, we can blame the village, and the village is just a small group in a neighborhood. But all of us with the voice, we have to speak out. We have to stand up We have to fight forward, as Miss Lee said, because the fight is not over. We're still in it.
Mhm.
I agree. We are still in the fight, and we're gonna be in this fight until real change takes place. So with that, I just want to thank you all for having this conversation. I want to thank you for the work and the labor that you all are doing. It's been very enlightening, and I just would like for you all to keep fighting forward. Don't give up. You all are game changers in the labor movement in the state of Mississippi, and I appreciate you all.